I really love cartoons, so I'm gonna try and draw myself in the style of a few of my favorite shows. I don't have much else to say for this intro, so let's just get right into the drawings. First up is My Little Pony. I'm doing Generation 4, Friendship is Magic, because, well, that's the one I watched. I did see the movie for Generation 5, and while I really liked the animation and music and everything, I never really felt interested in watching any more of it. It was good for what it was, but Friendship is Magic was special. This show was my go-to comfort show for so many years. I remember that whenever I felt down or lonely, I'd watch some episodes and I'd feel better. It was always kind of my safe place, so I'm really fond of it. I was never really part of the fandom though, because it was kind of a mess, but now I finally get to make my own OC. Or Pony Sona, or something. I kinda just eyeballed the pose from some reference pictures that I saw. It was difficult trying to figure out how big to make the eyes, because the characters have very big eyes, and you don't really notice until you're trying to draw it, and it just never feels right. I also saw a lot of fan art where their characters had these like fluffy parts on their hooves, and I kinda wanted to add that too, because I thought it was cute. As for my persona, I've decided I would probably need to be a unicorn if I wanted to pursue art, so that I could use magic to lift paintbrushes and stuff. I think I'd own an art studio or an art shop somewhere in Ponyville. And my name would be Starry Scribbles. Scribble for short. I spent a long time trying to think of a cutie mark that would work for me, because it's supposed to represent like your entire future and who you are as a person, or a pony, I suppose. But eventually I settled on a quill drawing stars. I thought it was pretty cute, and it's a good representation of what I wanted, which is to have something kind of art related, but not super on the nose, like a floating paintbrush. I contemplated a few different color options, choosing from the palette of my own avatar, but I ended up choosing the purple and the kind of grayish purple. I think the calm, cool tones more suit my personality. I also didn't want the design to be too busy, because I wanted it to still feel like it could fit into the show, like as a background character or something. I tested out some lighting, but eventually I just kind of scrapped it and went with this. I think it turned out really good. I'd say I'm pretty happy with my first Pony Sona, or whatever you call them. Up next is Miraculous Ladybug. I am a huge fan of superhero shows. I don't even remember how I got into this one, but when I did, I was hooked. I had to spend some time figuring out the proportions though, because I definitely wasn't used to this style. And obviously the show is in 3D and I'm drawing in 2D, so it's not going to be a perfect one-to-one, but I think I got pretty close. I had some references off to the side to figure out how to draw the features. 3D art can typically get away with a lot more details since they don't have to draw every frame. I noticed that the hair was really detailed, like you can pretty much see every strand, but I'm going to save that for the rendering phase. In case it wasn't clear by now, the Miraculous I chose was the Black Cat. Because, of course, I have to choose the Black Cat Miraculous. 1, because Plag is awesome, and 2, I want the power of destruction, creating art by day and destroying evil by night. I think it's a good balance, and I kinda just love Cat Noir's whole thing, so yeah. A lot of variations of Cat Noir's design, and even some of the other characters that use the Black Cat Miraculous, tend to have kind of sporty looking costumes when they transform, so I ended up making mine look kind of sporty too. I think the only thing I would go back and change is probably how thick I made the outlines. It probably would have been better to use thinner outlines, but I just didn't realize it until too late. I really like using the thicker brushes, so I think it was just kind of natural that I started using it. So while I love the series, I kind of fell off around season 5. I saw the movie and I really loved that, but I really just wasn't enjoying the series anymore and how the characters were being handled. Even after all that, it still is one of my favorite shows, and I think it leaves a lot of room for creativity, especially with fan stuff. So one of the things about drawing in this art style is that the whole time I was looking at references for the characters, and my god, their limbs are so thin. I never really noticed until I tried copying the style, but I had to keep going back and making my character's ankles and arms thinner and thinner. Those things will snap like toothpicks. I still could have made them thinner by the end, but overall I got pretty close and I'm really happy with how it turned out. In Cat Noir's design, he has like a belt that kind of acts as a tail design-wise, and I wanted to do something similar but with ribbons. So I have a ribbon tail. I have 2 ribbon tails. I just felt like I needed 2 of them, and maybe that could just be my quirk or something, I don't know. The 2-tailed cat. Look, I just like how it looked, okay? And Cat Noir's weapon is, of course, the staff, so I made sure to include that in my pose. The one thing I did forget was the Miraculous itself, being the ring. But since you can't really see my fingers too well, I can just say that it's there, and you'll have to believe me. So I brought in a tiny Cat Noir for color reference. I wanted to include more green in my design, just because I like how the black looked with a really vibrant accent color. There's a character in the show named Zoe, and she gets the Miraculous of the cat, and her design actually has kind of the black and green coloring. Hers does have more purple in it, but I'm just gonna stick with the black and green. And since this is my persona, I'm going to keep my normal hair color the same. So for the shading, I started out with just a normal cell shading and kind of layered a little bit of texture on top. Instead of adding 1,000 little details, I'm just gonna kind of hint at them. I actually really liked rendering hair in this way. It was pretty fun, and something I hadn't really done in a while. I'm again gonna hint at the strands with the highlights, just using this kind of scratchy brush. Out of all the styles I chose for this video, this one was definitely the most complicated, and took the longest to render. But I wanted to start off with shows that not only was I really familiar with, but also had an art style that I thought I could replicate pretty easily. Because I think if I tried to tackle Spider-Verse, I might have a bit of difficulty. Same for Arcane, or any of those shows that have such beautiful artwork. And yes, I'm aware that Spider-Verse isn't a show, but my point still stands. So I'm just gonna keep doing really simple shading for this, and then using my reference, I was trying to figure out how to replicate the look of leather, because that's pretty tough, especially when you're trying to stylize. I actually went back and did a couple passes on trying to get the leather to look right, but eventually I settled on this one, which is just kind of using a soft brush with a few hard highlights. I also decided that the design could use more green, so I went back and colored some of the line art green. I think it really helps the design stand out more, and adds a little bit of depth. Some of the details were getting lost in the dark colors, so I think this fixes it pretty well. I almost forgot to add shading to the eyes and mask, so I'm just gonna go back and finish that up. And of course it can't be a true transformation sequence without the big green logo in the background. So there we have it. I like how it turned out. I'm pretty happy with this persona. I think I would make a very cool Cat Noir. The last persona I'm gonna make is from my latest favorite show, The Owl House. Or as I like to call it, the only good thing to come out of 2020. So I thought I was recording the first part of this sketch, but apparently not. So you can watch me just finish the sketch and let's move on. So even though the style is pretty simple, it was a little tricky to figure out the proportions. Because the characters are approximately 3.5 heads tall, which isn't a lot. And it's definitely outside of what I'm used to using. I ended up modeling my persona after a few different characters. One who was like a background character with bangs, and then a bit of Amity in the eyes. I wanted to make my character a witch instead of just a human, because pointy ears are cool, and I wanted them. I'm not going to go into the details of any of these shows, but you should go and watch them if you're interested, because all of these are super good, and I love them. So basically there is a magic school in this show, and I think if I attended said magic school, I would be on the illusionist track. Because I think there's a lot you can do with illusions, and it seems the most appealing to me out of all of the other ones. They do have a school uniform with specific colors depending on what track you're on, but I decided to just go with my normal civilian clothes, just to make it more recognizable that this is my persona. Even though I'm a huge fan of this show, to be honest, I don't have Disney Plus, so I had to watch whatever episodes I could find on YouTube. And I'm not even sure that I saw all the episodes. I watched as many as I could, and eventually I watched the finale, and it was amazing! Probably one of the best finales I've ever seen. And not too many of my favorite shows even get a finale, so this was especially awesome to see. I brought in a mini Amity for a reference, just to figure out how the shading should work and what kind of colors I should use. So the thing about this show is, depending on the scene, it can have some pretty dramatic lighting, or it could have really simple lighting, so I'm just gonna stick with the simple. Apparently this show is considered horror, which I can totally see, but I didn't really think about it. It's pretty funny. It's definitely got some horror elements. Kind of like how Courage the Cowardly Dog was horror, but for kids. So this little creature I'm drawing is a cat owl. I figured that a witch needs a palisman, and if you don't know what a palisman is, it's kind of like a little creature that is carved from a specific wood that acts as a staff and a little animal companion. In the show, the wood that's used to carve these things is really rare, so the characters just adopt their palismans. But if I was able to make my own, it would be a cat owl, because those are my two favorite animals. For the colors, I wanted it to look like my cat, and she's a tuxedo named Misty, so here's Misty as a palisman. And there we have it, how I would look in the owl house. This was really fun, and I really enjoyed the challenge. If you liked what you saw, you can subscribe for more videos. See you next time.